everybody, Russ and my Hammers 11. Hope you're all safe and well. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hit the bell icon so you're made aware of any time we put new content on. Today's guest, he's a fellow Loughbrarian, I don't know. He went to Loughborough, same as me. Yeah, he's Loughbrarian. That sounds good. It's Phil Tierney. Phil, how are you, man?
Well, I'm good, thanks, Russ. Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. How are you? How's things in this weird world we live in at the moment?
Good. Yeah, I'm teaching at the moment. So I'm working locally in Hornchurch, teaching some students, and a few West Ham fans there to boot. But good. You do get quite a lot of sort of Spurs and Man United. So I'm trying to keep the tradition going. Nice. Yeah, it's been times without the football, isn't it? Like being able to go, I do miss it. But I've been doing a lot of these kind of 1-to-11s with some of my friends actually, and we've had great fun, kind of like reminiscing over the old times. So. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, so it's great.
Good. I mean, that's what it is, isn't it? I mean, you've got more time in your hands, a lot more time than not as much as beforehand, but you still got more time in your hands. And yeah, stuff like the 1-to-11s and your greatest players and things like that. You've just got time to think back, and I think that's why everyone's sort of enjoyed coming on the channel, because it gives them a chance to, as you said, sit back and sort of reminisce a bit, which is nice because there's so much going on all the time.
We don't get the chance to do that very often, do we? So it's great.
No.
Yeah, so that's good.
I mean, that was one of the things coming out of when we was in proper lockdown, I call it, was that everyone would literally would be watching old games and old reruns of matches and things like that, because there was nothing new on. And so, you know, people could relive their youth and their first games and things like that. And so, yeah, it was lovely. And hearing everyone's stories and stuff like that, I love. That's
a great opportunity. And I could talk about it all day long. So I'm delighted to do so.
Good. So Phil, for you, I see the Avco top. Why are you a West Ham fan? What's your story? What's your origin story?
Well, grew up in Hellwood in Romford, so West Ham's obviously a supported club in the area. My mum's side of the family from Stratford, and they support West Ham. So my grandfather lived a stone's throw from the stadium. So I go with them. And my dad was actually in advertising at the time, and around 85, 86, or that famous season, his company started sponsoring the games up to Park. So the old days with the advertising boards, Rapier was the company, and Dad would take me along to the games there. So I just fell in love with West Ham at the time. My first game was in '86 against Wimbledon, and we lost 3-2. So you saw very contrasting, even then, styles of football.
Yeah.
With the crazy game, and but I just fell in love with West Ham and everything connected. As soon as I went, I was hooked. You know, 6 years old, back in the '80s.
Yeah, and you're right. It's one of those things, isn't it? Once you're in, you're hooked, isn't it? I've always interviewed 200 people so far, and no one said, "Oh yeah, I watched the first game. It was all right. I didn't bother going back." No, everyone's like, "First game, I'm hooked. I'm in." And once you're in, you're in. You can't get out, can you? You can't get out.
Exactly. And I've tried to escape many times, but just been unable to do so.
It's a bit like those sort of, those finger traps. The more you struggle, the tighter the grip gets, and that's a bit like West Ham. The more you struggle with it, the more it pulls you back in. And
exactly that. Exactly.
Particularly during lockdown as well, because obviously people have gone, "Oh, I really miss it." A lot of people have been interviewing. They've said that
I don't know about you. I watched some of those old season reviews that I think Robert Banks.
Yeah, Robert Banks. Yeah.
They were fantastic. So I was really good reminiscing with those. Particularly some of the players I'll talk about today were prominent on those as well. So as I started going in the '80s, but my real love, I suppose, kicked on under the sort of Billy Bonds and Harry Redknapp times. They were special times in my. I'm being 40 years old. That was the kind of era I look back most on with fondness. A bit too young to remember the John Lyle at the peak. Although my first game was in '86, but I was only 6 or 7 years old. So I think the Redknapp era was probably my most cherished.
I mean, you're almost identical. I mean, I'm about I'm a year younger than you, so I've just turned 39. So so literally, I'm exactly the same. It was the Billy Bonds and Harry Redknapp era was sort of when I bloomed into being a West Ham fan, and and not a bad time to jump on. The Redknapp era, I think, was probably the most entertaining era we've had in the modern day, so to speak, in my lifetime. That's for sure.
That's right. It wasn't dull, was it? That's
No,
for
it
sure.
wasn't. No, we've interviewed quite a few of the players around that time, and yeah, there's a lot of stories. There's a lot more to come as well, and we've got a few more to come as well. But and that's what it is. And I just think that era was just such a fun era. It was just so. I've said it before. It's a bit like a soap opera. It really was. There was just like you had the protagonists, you had the sort of the elder statesmen, your Ruddocks and Wrights and Stuart Pearces. You had your young pretenders, your Rios and Lampards and stuff. Then you had this sort of sprinkling of foreign talent. Maybe not so much talent with your Boogers and stuff like that, but it was yeah. But it was great. It was great times, man. It was fun. Yeah. And I mean, obviously now with restart and obviously the game's all behind closed doors, I think people appreciate the sort of distraction of football even more now. A lot of people I interviewed said they found it a bit of a chore going to West Ham the last few years, but it's something which they're a chore they want to do again. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like
I agree.
they're sort of crying out to get back.
But I mean, I did prefer Upton Park if I'm being completely honest. But I'd rather go to football than go shopping on Saturday. And I remember in my early days, I said to my dad, when I was old enough to choose to go by myself and I went with friends, I said to my dad, like, if Dad picked me up, what do you think? Because I went without him for the first time. And then I went to the cinema the following week. I said, cinema just doesn't compare with going to football on a Saturday day. It's just, there's no contest here. I know what I want to do. I want to go and watch football every Saturday. And that was me. And obviously they're on different days now. But, I was hooked. So I just wanted, as soon as I could go by myself, I started going by myself. I've met some great friends through being a West Ham supporter, and friends for life, really, who I consider family as well. So it's great.
Yeah, it is. And it's the same as you. I mean, it always used to be Saturday. If West Ham were at home, obviously we'd be going. And then we bought Orient season tickets as well because they were like a tenner for like under 16s. Yeah,
that was when Barry Hearn took over, wasn't it? When Barry Hearn came in. And he offered them for a tenner. I was under 16 as well, and I went to about 3 or 4 games. So I had season ticket at West Ham and Orient in the same year. That was good. They were good times.
They were good times. It was different football, wasn't it? The Orient football. I used to love going it because you would go on your own. It was like because you could get on the train. I was at Loughton at the time, so I was literally a few stops away, so it was easy.
Yeah. I used to jump on at Harold Wood, get the train to Stratford, and then you're in later a couple of stops. That was good. And again, that sense of independence. Like going by yourself.
Definitely.
Nothing I'm doing in my spare time and go and watch football. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why people, that sort of early teenage years, people sort of hold dear to them in terms of their footballing, who they saw, because it was that sense of independence as well, wasn't it? It's the first time your mum and dad let you go away and stuff like that as well. So it's all about coming of age, isn't it? And I think that's why those type of players around that era you have really dear to your heart because of that exact reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting how we perceive the modern players in 20 years' time. It'd be interesting how they look back upon.
Yeah, exactly. For the younger fans, so the less experienced fans, not younger fans, less experienced fans, who they've grown up with the Lanzinis and Andersons and Hallers. Be interested to see if they still have the same. I don't think they will because I think football's changed, and that's something which I think is really sad. In fact, how modern football's changed compared to even when we were going. I mean, when we first go, it's the 90s. It's not a million. It's 20, 30 years ago, or whatever. It's completely changed. How players interact with fans and stuff. So. It is a shame. It's like as I've mentioned before, when I used to live in Loughton, I used to work at Safeways, and you'd have Shaq who would turn up with shopping, or Sebastian Abu or Paul Kitson, and you wouldn't get that now. You wouldn't get, I live in Hornchurch as well. You wouldn't get Sebastian Haller turning up to the Co-op at the top of the road, at Osborne Road.
Very unlikely. I used to see him in Romford, a lot of the players, and you probably did too. I mean, this is like the late 90s. We go out, and there were one night there were Paul Kitson was there, and Joe Cole. I think John Terry used to hang about with him a little bit as well in that crowd back in the day. And that was the days where you used to pay by cash when you went out. and I've never seen anyone carry as much cash on them as Paul Kitson at the bar. And it was like a wad of cash, like you would not believe. And you just wouldn't see that anymore. And he was buying everybody in the vicinity drinks. And it wasn't cheap to go out as it isn't now. But but he certainly had a lot of it. And bear in mind, he was kind of in the reserves at the time. This was a couple of years into his spell, and I just thought, even then, the amount of money these guys were earning, it's probably minuscule compared to now.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Still a decent. But again, it was the last real time you've sort of seen that interaction with the players close up.
Very true. Although I did see Paul Kitson. I know he's a bit of flash with cash because I saw him in Woolworths in Loughton with a bag of pick a mix. It was like a bin bag, I tell you, Phil. It was like a bin bag of pick a mix at Woolworths, and I was like, "Oh my god, how cool is that?"
I used to him in time and envy him. Like Michael Carrick, and I actually recognised Michael Carrick. I was the first one to my claim to fame is I recognised Michael Carrick for the first time when we played Spurs when we beat them 1-0 the first game in 99-2000. Michael Carrick was on the bench. We just won the FA Youth Cup that season, the summer before, which obviously goes down in West Ham folklore. Yeah. And I recognised Michael Carrick from there, and he's very tall if you ever meet him in flesh. And I'm about 6'1", but he was actually towered above me. And I sort of said to him, like, you play for West Ham, and I didn't realise he was Geordie. So I was talking to him and stuff. He's very, very shy. And I sort of said, how often do you get recognised when you come out? And he said, well, this is the first time I've been recognised. This was in Life Bar in Romford. And I said, really? You must get recognised. And he said, no, first time I've been recognised. So I'll always remember that. He was a lovely guy. I had time for it. And then as his career progressed on, he had more and more people around him. Couldn't get anywhere near him in the social side, but he's a lovely guy. I remember. I'm sure he hasn't changed. I hope he hasn't changed too much anyway.
No, I don't think. I wouldn't think. That lot never seemed to. They all seemed like to be like really grounded players. Do you know what I mean? Like Joe and him and Rio. I mean, even if you walked down the road now and you saw Rio, if you went and talked to him, he'd have time. You see, I mean, I know he put stuff on Twitter and of him like talking to kids and following them on Twitter and stuff, but. You just get that, that's obviously PR people, but you think, all them lot still, would stop and have a chat with you. Same as same as the players, like like we talk, I've had like Moncur and Bish and people like that, and they just, and to be honest, they make you feel like when you interview them, they make you feel like you're their best mate. Do you know what I mean? It's like
there's a definite warmth and affinity to players. I've done a bit of the odd hospitality game, and Georgie Paris was the lounge, and he's so lovely and very down to earth. Just stop beer, really talks about the old times. I think these guys talk about the old times for ages. In recent years, got to know Danny Williamson pretty well from gym. He keeps himself very fit and in shape.
See, now Danny Williamson is one of the ones that people keep emailing me about. So we'll talk. We'll talk later, Phil. But Danny Williamson is the one.
You'll do well to get him A on here or B into the new stadium. That is a hell of a challenge for anybody who knows Danny. I think he just likes to keep it. He might be listening to this at some point, but he just likes to keep his life separate.
There's a few people like that. There is a few people like that. A few sort of even the West Ham so-called, even the legends, so to speak. They've I've reached out, and to be fair, they've come back to me and go, I like to. I was like, okay, no worries, no problems. But that's fair enough. But anyway, let's go on and talk about your 11 because I'm interested about it, Phil. Because as I said, we share a very similar timeline. The only rule is you have to be alive to have seen them play. That's it. You can pick who you want, whatever formation you want. Doesn't have to be the best players, favourite players. I don't know, sick note 11, whatever, mate. It's up to you, man. Whatever you want to pick.
I'm trying to go down the route of the best players I've seen. But I'll say our first game was in 86, 87 against Wimbledon. And the likes of Alan Devonshire, Ray Stewart were playing then. But I just don't remember them too well at their peak. No. So, I mean, they would make a lot of all-time 11s. I fully appreciate that. But for me, I'm trying to go on with what I actually remember and when I can actually judge a player.
Exactly.
So that was my criteria for selecting the 11. And so do you want me to start with...
we'll start off in goal. Go on, we'll go with the keeper.
I'm probably a popular choice, but I couldn't look beyond Ludo as the goalie. And I always remember the game against Manchester United, the last game of the season when he effectively denied them the title. and he was absolutely outstanding that day. And apparently, he's one of the fittest guys at the club when he was there. When they used to do the runs over Hainault Forest, Ludo would be up the front, one of the fittest guys, and Dixie, who also will inevitably make my team, was near the back. So Ludo could actually run a lot of these guys ragged, and also he could bring them under the table as well, by all accounts. So that's what. I don't think I've ever met Ludo, but yeah, I'd love to meet him. Bear in mind, he couldn't speak much English when he came over.
No, and even now, you know, we've tried to get him on the channel, and even now he's like, do you know what? My English is so crap. It's like, no one cares, Ludo. Honestly, no one cares.
I'm sure it's not, but yeah, he's probably just a very modest guy, but a fantastic goalkeeper and a great command. I mean, to replace Phil Parkes as well was no easy task. I mean, obviously Alan McKnight came along. Nice guy, Alan. I do know Alan for a friend, but he's not quite in the same league as dear old Ludo. So no, Ludo would be the goalkeeper. I've gone for a back four as well.
Nice.
Again, Tim Breaker was close in the right back spot. I mean, with some great times with Timmy Breaker, overlapping, great engine, great work ethic. I think just great bloke all round, and players will tell you. I went for Lucas Neal at right back.
Yeah, Lucas.
Again, he just seemed to have such a big impact in that Great Escape season.
Yeah, he did.
2006-07 when we stayed up, and listening to a lot of your guys on the show, they've said how instrumental he was in the dressing room. Some of his kind of team talks.
Definitely.
And very underestimated as the captain of West Ham. He was only there a couple of years, but for me, he was a very good player. Nothing got past him, and he had a huge respect of all his teammates. So for me, that's a big thing.
Yeah, totally.
Work rate, work ethic. Yeah, so go with Lucas Neal at right back.
Yeah, I mean, with that. Sorry, but with that, I'm with you in terms of when you hear, like, it's not just one player. You said 3 or 4 players we've interviewed in that time, and they've all said how great Lucas Neal is. That to me means a lot more because he's in their day and age. You know, obviously we can think he's a good leader, we can think that, but actually to see it from there, it's like, I just really rate it. Go on, sorry, I'll go. You carry on, man.
I'll tell you who was a good captain. You wouldn't. It's Lucas Neal. You know, people say it in that kind of way, like with surprise to the outsider, because you know he wasn't necessarily known as being an amazing captain for West Ham. But he was a very good player, and he could slot anywhere in the back four. And I think he was huge in that time when he came in and justified his wages. I mean, obviously signed for us for a reason in Liverpool, but I think that was a great signing by Curbs. I think it was at the time.
Definitely.
Yeah. So centre backs, this was a tough one because I'd say in terms of ability, the best two I've seen are Rio Ferdinand and Alvin Martin. And Alvin makes the team because he played on in the 90s. Because some of the guys of the greats of 85, 86 who didn't play on didn't make my 11 for that, just because of my age, really. But Alvin was a tremendous player, and I remember a couple of games when he played under Harry when he came in, and he hadn't played for ages. He hadn't really trained. He came in, and he was just a different class to everybody else. And a lovely guy as well, definitely an honorary Cockney, despite being from Liverpool. Took the club to his heart, played and captained the club for many years. But I remember one game against Everton, the ball was like kicked really high from, I think it was like Neville Southall or someone, and he just brought it. Most defenders would have headed it. And I distinctly remember, sort of 25 years later, he brought it down on his chest, and he just made all the time in the world for himself. And I thought, what a role model for someone like Rio, who is his defensive partner. And what a great moment for Alvin when you saw last season with David, his son. It was probably my favourite moment of last season. It was an amazing moment, but also probably indicates how bad things were. If that is the highlight of the season, but it was a very poignant moment to see father and son like that. And my son hopefully will, follow me as a hammer. Not for the one that's playing for me, he's only 3, but he's got the kit and everything else. But that was such a nice moment to see Alvin and David embraced at Stamford Bridge that day. So Alvin would definitely make the team alongside him with Rio, and again it was that great moment against Sheffield Wednesday, that last game when Alvin sort of played his last game and Rio came on.
Passed on,
So I'm sure that the overlap was a very poignant, fitting moment. I'm sure that Rio learned loads from Alvin, and what a player Rio was. I think he got better as he progressed throughout his career at Leeds and Man United. But even what we saw at West Ham for a couple of seasons, you see we had a special player.
Yeah,
and I think he The turning point really was that game when he played in the Youth Cup, when he played in midfield. And Harry tells the story. His dad saw him. Who's this player? Reaching for the programme. And I don't think he was pulling up any trees at the time, but he had an outstanding game in the centre midfield. And I think he just kicked on through. And I think he grew about 5 inches by all accounts. And he has a similar age to me. He's a year above. He's virtually exactly a year older than me. But what a career he had. And it was real sad when we sold him, It was a sad time. He signed us for 18 million, a lot of money. But then we sold him for 30 million, and they sold him for 30 million a year later. We were somewhat shortchanged. But, great player, great ability on the ball. And he was definitely suited to like a back three at the time when we played under Harry.
Yeah.
But he could play into 4-4-2. He could play in midfield. He was that good. But the one I wanted to include, unfortunately, didn't make my my cut was Ginger Pele, because in recent years there's no one I've really enjoyed watching as much as him in terms of like galvanise, apart from like the skill factor, like Payet, I'll come on to. But there's no one in the back four for me, or back five, could galvanise the crowd like Ginger could. Like a crunching tackle, a thunderous header. Just absolute commitment to the badge, and wanting to win every challenge. In the last couple of years, Upton Park, for me, he was a standout performer in the back. And then when we came to the new stadium, I mean, the appeal from the fans to like keep him on, like sign him up, Ginger Pele. I just thought he was fantastic. I mean, I do like Obona, great defender, and he's progressing. But he just doesn't have that crunching factor that can really get the crowd going when he smash up the wall. But Ginger's very fair with it. He wasn't a dirty player by any stretch of the imagination. I still feel now he could do a job. He's doing like 5Ks in like 21 minutes.
Yeah,
he's in great condition. I do a lot of running as well, and he's in great condition. And you think he would do a job for if he was so willing to do a job for a club. But I really wanted to get him in, so he would be my sort of backup. And 2 spells for the club as well. Samir is there, and left back. No introduction, Julian Dix. I think any of my era would
definitely
would have Julian. And I watched with Dave Walker, your once with him. He said that you've never seen anybody from left back galvanise the crowd or influence or control the crowd as well as Julian could, and that's absolutely right. And he scored double figures from there, very influential. And again, I saw him in Romford a couple of times, and it was almost like dead scared to go up to him, even though he was like an idol. Even though he was smaller than me, he was a lot wider than me and stockier. But he had this presence, and I did talk to him, and he was actually very, very friendly, like way more than he actually looked. They say never meet your heroes, but he was very friendly, and he wanted to hear about. And there was another guy that came up to him that night. I always remember it's a very drunk guy, and he was like trying to tell Julian about the goal he scored, like the last Sunday game he played. Oh, I scored this great goal, and Julian Julian could have easily just brushed the guy off, but gave him all the time in the world to hear about this goal. So I just thought, a special guy. It was great when he came back as the sort of assistant to Slaven.
It was.
But for me, I really wanted to see him on the sideline, really, but I think his knees wouldn't allow it anymore. Up and down. And it was great when he came back after that 18 months out. Or whatever he had. I remember him coming out against Northampton, and it was just great to see him leading the team out again. I bet he was never quite the same with his knees.
No, he wasn't.
And when you bear in mind his warm-up, which consisted of drinking Coke, smashing the ball against
Coke and a Mars bar,
a real character and a super fan. And I think every West Ham fan would say should have played for England.
Oh, definitely.
And without doubt.
No, definitely not.
Great
He's one of those people, I think, outside of West Ham, whose reputation went before him. Do you know what I mean? He was this thug. He was a skinhead. He was da. But anyone in West Ham or anyone who'd seen him play for more than 90 minutes knew he was one of the most gifted left backs this country'd ever seen.
Incredible left foot, and he could ping the ball. When I talked to Danny, he says like Julian could just ping it 50 yards along the floor, and it would just go to the man. Like dead straight. No backlift, and just a real talent as well. And I think
who said that? Someone, it might have been Steve Jones or someone like that. One of the forwards I interviewed said the thing about Julian Dix was he would pass it and he would make your first decision for you. So it just the flight of the ball, as you said about Danny, like you would know what he wanted you to do. So your first decision was already made by it. And that takes some absolute bottle and skill to do that.
And the thing is, as well, he would look after the space as well. There was no one. If people were in his way, he would tell them where to go. And you're damn well sure if you played with him, you'd move out the way, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If he was telling you to move. But he would just like take care of that side of the pitch. And nowadays, you get a lot of players like, I mean, Mark Noble does this for me quite a lot. He comes deep looking for the ball. And sometimes it's a bit unnecessary. Doesn't need to be done.
No.
I don't want to criticise Mark, but, you know, like, he's been a great servant to West Ham. But, you know, sometimes they will get in each other's way. But with Dixie, that he wouldn't allow that. He was,
you're right. Thinking about it, you're bang on about that, because it is. I mean, even I mean, they collect it so deep, the midfielders, that it's almost like a 1 yard pass from Ogbonna to Martin. You're thinking, what's
and
the
it's
point?
almost like it's unnecessary. It's waste of just a bit. It's inefficient. It's inefficient, and it will go back, then it will go sideways. I mean, every pass that Dixie made was always a telling forward pass. And he could carry it. He could play. He could dribble. He had everything really for a left back. And even today in the modern game, you just wonder how he would cut it. But I think he would just. I think he'd be all right. I think he'd be okay.
He'd be right. I think VAR would screw him over a few times. But yeah,
and a lot of them of that era as well. But I think if you're that good a player, I think you. Because he never really got done for pace either, did he? Thinking about it, he never really got exposed.
He's intelligent, wasn't he? He put himself in the right space.
We played him left wing back, which wasn't the best decision. But when he played like left centre back, like where Cresswell's playing now, he was outstanding. And that year he got 10 goals. He got hammered year 95, 96. He was playing virtually as a left-sided centre back, and I thought that potentially was his best position. And again, very unlucky not to get captain and like Bonzo. All around great player, fantastic memory.
Yeah, good shout. All right, Julian's in. That's your back four and your keeper. Go on then, Phil. You go into midfield, man.
So in the midfield, it's a very attacking-based midfield, and there's one person in there. I think that's in keeping with John Lyle and Harry Redknapp, like two of my favourite managers we've had. And it was all about playing football the right way, the West Ham way, and keeping the ball on the deck. And that would be very necessary with these kind of players and with the front two. So a lot of stuff the ball would be on the floor pretty much permanently, because no one in my team, I don't think, apart from the back four, can hit it. So Scott Parker would be in the centre of midfield.
Oh, nice.
And, I think it's worth mentioning, he was player of the year three times in a row. In amongst some very good players as well. We bought a lot of players around that time, but he was like the standout performer in that kind of the decade, the noughties, that decade from sort of 2007 to 2011, I think it was at the club. And he was just phenomenal in those sort of 4 years that he was there. And to win Football Writers Player of the Year or Footballer of the Year when we went down, I mean, that was just incredible to have the respect of the football community, and very much appreciated by his teammates. And I would love to have heard that team talk he did at West Brom, when we were 3-0 down.
Yeah.
That, again, has gone down in folklore and amongst the players West Ham that you listen to. So, great player. And he would have to do all the tackling, and you'll see why when the rest are revealed. Alongside him in centre midfield, it would be Eyal Berkovic. Now, I did tweet you about this, and that was like when I watched the Dave Walker 1-11. And I'm going to take Dave's line here. He said, "I've never seen a midfielder that can unlock the defence like Eyal Berkovic." And you know what? Neither have I. I mean, that was like so true. I mean, he in the final third, and I would include Joe Cole in this. There was no one who I've seen that could slot a through ball with the weight, the precision that Eyal could. And apparently he was very very tough. You couldn't really knock him off the ball.
Quite small as well, so centre of gravity is quite low.
And he suited that sort of 3-5-2 formation. Now I put him in a 4-4-2 purely because I like this formation, and I just wanted to get him in the team somehow. And with Scott Parker alongside him, I think that'd be a nice mix.
Yeah,
definitely. And he could focus on going forward, and Parker would probably have to sit a little bit more, but so be it. Just a great player, and it's a shame we only got 2 years out of him. But I think it's the right move I think he wanted to go, and also with Joe Cole through. I don't think the two of them could play on the same side so much. So we all like our homegrown talent, and Joe was a fantastic player. But I think when Eyal Berkovic was at his peak, he was just incredible. And John Hartson would probably attribute a lot of his goals to him.
He did, he did.
Especially for the first part of 97, 98. Fantastic player. And I remember a 6 month spell when Di Canio came. I'll talk about him later. When he came in, there was about 6 months when him and Berkowitz played together in the same team, and some of the movement, the passing, like the through balls, and they were on a great wavelength. But not many fans will remember that period. It was only about 6 months. You see, it wasn't very long. But the second half of that season, when we finished fifth, Berkowitz and Di Canio really were like super to watch, sublime, you know.
What a pairing.
Yeah, so I think so, and obviously we had reservations about Di Canio coming in when we sold John Hartson, and I certainly did anyway, and the rest is history, as I'll allude to later. But yeah, so I think that's a pretty strong midfield pair.
Two,
Now Declan Rice was very close to getting in. Purely if we need to make it more defensive, then Declan Rice would be knocking on the door for sure. I'm sure he'll make many people's teams, particularly in the modern era, and he will become
particularly since Monday.
Well, exactly. We kept him. How long we keep him for, I don't know, but we have to be realistic on that one. But a superb professional, and to have the captain's armband at that age is phenomenal.
Incredible.
It shows he has the respect of everyone,
Definitely.
doesn't it? So, but I mean, he plays like. I mean, he's probably one player that. I mean, he seems a really nice guy. Actually, I met him as well. Like very down to earth, and just a good professional. He seems to love playing football for a living, which is great, and plays with a smile on his face and that exuberance, you know. So it's great to see. So just to complete the midfield, you won't be surprised to hear on the left will be Dimitri Payet.
Yeah.
You know, for those 18 months was absolutely phenomenal for West Ham. And really, like, after the Sam Allardyce years, I actually like Sam Allardyce. I don't want to criticise him, but we didn't really have a player of that quality. Brought in by Slovan, and he was just incredible for that 18-month period, particularly the last year at Upton Park. And I remember the game against Manchester United away in the FA Cup when he scored the goal from seemingly about 40 yards away against De Gea. And I don't know if you were there that day, but I was behind the goal with a good friend of mine, and we had an absolute, like, it just seemed to happen in slow motion. Like, did that actually happen? And we celebrated the goal, like, you know, when Dill and Rodney win the millions, I only thought. And it was like that for a moment, and then they just go absolutely crazy. Well, that's how I celebrated that goal, and it's probably the goal I've celebrated the most in my time at Hammer. And we were the front row of the upper tier behind the goal at Old Trafford. I forget the name of the stand, but behind the goal, and we had a moment's pause, as I say, and then me and my mate just like kept shaking each other for like, sleep for a long, long time. It was just an amazing experience, and I really thought that year we were going to win the cup.
Yeah,
devastating, really, to get to it for them to equalise and then beat us in the replay.
You thought it was
the cup that year.
You thought that was going to be written in the stars that year. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just like it would have been the perfect fairy tale ending. And someone I mentioned, I can't remember who it was. Someone I interviewed, a player, might even be McAvenny or something like that, said, "You know when it's a good goal when people don't cheer immediately. There's a pause of disbelief, and then the cheer, and like that goal exactly. It's like,
that's probably the best thing. Unfortunately, I didn't see Carlos go against Wimbledon, but I didn't see it live. I was at Loughborough at the time. But that goal was incredible, Payet's goal. And again, that season, there was a couple of free kicks, weren't there? And some goals in open play. The Crystal Palace one. And in the 6 months, or in the first half of the season, he did the new stadium, the goal against Middlesbrough. There were some great moments. And, it was a privilege to have him at the club. But it was just a shame the way it ended, really. But, other contenders for, like, Matty Etherington did a great job for us. And I'm just a little bit too young for Alan Devonshire on the left. But he would have been good. But I did see him play, but not in his heyday, really. So
no.
It's clearly for me on the left. And on the right, I've got another Israeli, Yossi Benayoun, on the right-hand side. I thought, again, only with us a couple of years. Oh, and did 2 spells, actually, didn't he? Came back again. But I'm thinking more from his first spell, where he was a tremendous player. I remember when we bought him, I think, Racing Santander. And we only bought him for a couple of, about 2.5 million. But it was just a little bit of quality we needed coming up in the Championship. We lacked that little bit of flair. And he could play on the left or the right. I think he was better on the right. And he scored some phenomenal goals. I mean, the one against Fulham, I always remember when he sort of chips it over the goalkeeper. And the goal against Spurs. I think the importance of that goal, the win on the Lasagna game, tremendous. Just a good player, and I think appreciated by teammates as well. And again, very strong.
Yeah,
tough on the
very strong.
ball, hard to dispossess, never gave the ball away, and he was incredible in the running as well with the Great Escape, 2006. Yeah, so I remember going to Wigan away that day, and he was absolutely outstanding. We won 3-0. We had the coaches were laid on by the club for free. We went up there, and again, I actually those 3 goals were celebrated with a similar intensity as that one at Man United some years later. I mean, that was a great day, Wigan away, and then Eggert Magnusson was coming into the fans at the end and getting absolutely more. But good times. Obviously, spelt the club, and you couldn't really. Yeah, you can understand them going with Liverpool coming in for you.
Of course you can, and I mean, I think he's the first. He was the first player to score hat tricks in the Champions League, Premier League, FA Cup, and maybe the League Cup. Or obviously, I think 3 or 4 people have done it since, but he was great. And you're right, he was really. It was because he was wiry, very wiry player. But unlike Matty Etherington, who looked like and I've spoken to him about this, it looked like a strong wind would knock him down. Yoshi apparently loved. Yoshi loved a tackle. He loved getting involved in training, and you could see that.
He could handle himself, couldn't he? Yeah, which I think is
Exactly.
in the modern game, well, relatively modern, you have to do that. But he was stronger than his sort of physique suggested, and really good player, really really good player, and for me, he would make the right hand side midfield. Trevor Sinclair would run him fairly close, just for his like all round game. This is a good guy as well, Trev. But I think you're still just a tad more quality, really.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Different kind of player.
Yeah, different kind of players, and I think you're right. Yoshi had that. I don't know. He just had that sort of schwa de vie about him. It's like
on the ball. I like players, ball players. Players that can actually get the ball down, play little 1-2s, give and goes. Those type of players. And I think he could play but he could probably play in the hole as well. He could probably have been an number 10 if the system suited. But in terms of because I don't think we really played that formation then when we was at the club. But in terms of right hand side of midfield, he would get it. And obviously Mark Ward a little bit too young for me.
Me too.
I was a bit too young for him. Sorry, but great player. That's the midfield.
Yeah.
And up front, I've alluded to this guy a few times now. Paolo Di Canio,
of course,
would be an obvious pick. And I remember the goal against Wimbledon. What a fantastic goal that was. I was in Loughborough at the time, watching it there. It was a real regret of mine that I didn't go to that game because I was at university, and I didn't go to the Manchester United FA Cup game. So everyone and every other fan seemed to have gone to both of those games. But given the amount of games I've been to over the years, they were the 2 main ones that I kind of wasn't at for 2 different reasons.
And both times.
Yeah, both pretty good reasons. But a real regret that I didn't actually get the goal in the flesh. But I do remember I played football that morning, a Sunday morning football up in Loughborough, and I remember jumping up in this pub called the Pageant. Arms near where I was living. Remember that one?
I remember the Pageant.
Still there. I go back to Loughborough once or twice a year, and it's still there. I think it's changed its name now, but it's the same pub. And I remember that was a day where Canute made his debut as well, and it was probably one of the best debuts I've ever seen. He was a good player, Freddie Canute.
Brilliant.
One of the best player debuts I've ever seen. If you're up there with West Ham debuts, I mean, the guy who played Sunday, I thought had a terrific game. Who felt?
Yeah,
but in terms of a forward coming in and absolutely running Wimbledon ragged, that day was Freddie Canute. But that, obviously we remember Di Canio's goal. I remember jumping up, and I remember my hamstrings were so tight because I'd played football in the morning and really stretched. But I rushed back to the pub. So I mean, not that anyone stretched after the game, but I went back to the pub to watch the game. There was a couple of hammers that were at Loughborough. And sometimes I just watch them by myself. I didn't care. I mean, there was a few West Ham fans about.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know you at the time. But I remember leaping up and sort of doing my hamstring, but it was just pure cramp. But I didn't care. It was just such a good goal. And I remember going in the next day to the lectures, and everyone was sort of giving me praise for the goal. Like, Hammer, what a goal. I didn't score it, but I'm happy to take the praise for it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, because obviously there wasn't many fans up there, West Ham fans being in the Midlands. But terrific goal, great personality. It's a shame he didn't do it a little bit more away from home. But I think what he did at Upton Park, that was his arena, wasn't it, Paolo?
It was.
That was
It
his
was his
theatre.
church.
That was his church. Whatever analogy you want to use. That he was so comfortable at West Ham,
Yeah,
and
he was
tremendous there. And his partner up front would be he's going to be Tony Cottee, who 2 spells at the club. Again, he was one of the reasons I fell in love with football and scoring goals. He was so prolific. I mean, Frank McAvenny the same. But I remember, I think more the second spell was more, obviously lives in the memory for me a lot more. I mean, his first spell, obviously you see a lot on the VHS, the old tapes that I used to watch. But I do remember him as well. But more like vivid memories from his second spell. When he, was a prolific goal scorer and a fan as well. He loved the club. And I think that's very important to remember. And I don't think you can begrudge him leaving when he did, because it was a record transfer. I mean, who's going to stand in his way? I don't think the club showed the ambition at the time that we could have done.
No.
So he for me, should have remembered as an absolute great at West Ham. And again, not very tall, as Tony Gale always seems to mention, when he's on about his height. And neither. So, in terms of my team, it has to be ball on the floor, 1-2s, give and goes. Running, beating the last one, and just hopefully beat any team just by sheer guile and wit, and just playing football the right way, the West Ham way. So Tony Cottee would complete the lineup. And a tremendous goal scorer, probably one of the best finishers we've had. And Jermaine Defoe, you could argue, was up there as well in terms of an out-and-out finisher.
Yeah.
But again, didn't have the longevity that TC had.
No.
And was still off the club under a cloud. But TC was tremendous, and it's great to see him sometimes on the train going to the games, amongst the fans. You see him on the platform at Stratford going back towards Essex after the games, and he always stops to chat, and it's great that link with that area. They're mixing in with the fans, and sometimes you see Anton as well on the same platform, and Gailey, quite sociable, along the platform.
I mean, you're right, but I think it's because all them lot, TC and Macca and Gailey, and they all do the after dinner circuit, don't they? They all do their sort of down the Queens, or they used to do it down the Queens or the Cliffs or whatever there. And
they're great guys, aren't they? They've got a lot of time.
Just lovely blokes.
Yeah, exactly. People like that, watching them guys. Reason I fell in love with West Ham.
Yeah,
wearing this shirt, and it's it's just a great club, West Ham. And again, people don't realise what a well-supported club West Ham are. Anyone that comes to the area, come to a pub to watch a West Ham game, packed to the rafters. In Brentwood, where I live now, took a friend once to the pub, and he just could not believe the fan base. This many people in a pub on a Wednesday night watching Man United, West Ham on TV.
Crazy.
And it was incredible. And when you travel away, and I miss the away games, I really do. I tried to get to the football a year, and they're so much fun, aren't they, arguably compared to the home games. But they're just different. It's just different. It's nice to see. I do miss them, and try and get to as many as I can, really.
Although I used to. That's why I used to like being in Loughborough, because you were in the Midlands. So it was quite easy to get to away games. So like Leicester, I'd go to every year, and I think a few times it was over Christmas. So I had a house. So yeah.
And I've got a great story about this. Got a good friend of mine, I knew back then, Dave Terrace. He did. I don't know if you know Dave. He used to do he's on LBC radio. He works in radio and the media, and he used to sell the OLAS, the Overland and Sea.
Yeah.
So he used to see the players coming off the coach, and we obviously knew like Gary Bermager, another good friend of mine, Greg Mansell, used to sell it as well. So I kind of knew those guys a little bit. And I remember going to Leicester away. I jumped on the train at Loughborough, and I already had tickets for the game sorted. I remember meeting Dave outside the ground, and he said, I haven't got a ticket. And the players, he was waiting around for the players to get off the coach, and Harry and the team get off the coach about 1:30 or so, 3 o'clock kickoff. And Dave calls Harry out, and Harry comes over. Hi, Dave, you're right. Harry would talk to all the people, wouldn't he? That was like. Yeah. And he said, I haven't got a ticket, Harry. Is there anything you can do? I hate to ask, but do you have a ticket at all? And he said, Dave, I don't know if I have. There's hardly anything today, hardly any tickets going. So David kind of written it off and sort of stood around for a little bit more. And it must have been about quarter to three outside the away end, the entrance to the where the players go in, basically.
Yeah.
And Harry comes in, and he must have had about 5 or 6 tickets with him. And he goes, actually, Dave, here you go. And you just give him the ticket, So I just thought, that sort of sums Harry up as well. And I was thinking,
Yeah.
should not be doing like the team talk or something like that. But I remember we won 3-1,
So fair enough.
but I thought, what a lovely thing for Harry to do, and I'll always remember Harry for that. That's the only time I think I've ever seen Harry. But he came up and he hadn't forgotten the request about an hour earlier for tickets. And he'd obviously gone round and sorted the tickets out, and Dave was obviously very very happy with it. So some great memories and great characters with West Ham. And it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you about it, really.
Thank you. No, it's been great, Phil. It's been lovely reliving. And as I said, it's like it's because we share almost exactly the same timeline as well. That's
Yeah.
what I love, because it's like, oh yeah, like, you know, just like, you know.
I wish my degree could have been in West Ham United. I wish
Yeah.
I could have got some, some results.
Mine was politics with media studies. It was only fucking 3 hours a week, so
Yeah.
I did all right. Although my
So
house,
those games in the Midlands are good, but the only thing with Nottingham Forest, they weren't in the same division at the time, so it was a shame. I never went to the City Ground. Still to this day, I've never been. So that's on the list at some point.
Sure.
Hopefully, Chris Newton can get them up, and we can go to there again. But we went to a couple of dudes there, proms or balls, or dinners at the City Ground and Trent Bridge, but never actually went to a game there. That's a regret as well. But it's purely because they weren't in the same division. But
Leicester was. Me and my housemates, we used to, because obviously we used to do the announcing we do the music and stuff for the reserve games back at Upton Park. So obviously I would always, I would jump in my clapped out Fiesta and we'd bomb it down, the M1, to watch us, grind out a 0-0 draw against Fulham reserves on a Tuesday night, and then come back again. And it was because one housemate was a Sheffield Wednesday fan, so he was like, he'd always come with me to Sheffield United away. And the other one was a Leeds fan. He was Don Revie's grandson, so we'd go and see Leeds quite a bit as well during that time as well. But great days.
I remember one day there was at Loughborough University, an incredible football team, and they played against Western Villa reserves, I mean, once, and you had the likes of Stan Collymore playing. We were stood right there, Paul Merson. I don't know if you remember that, but Villa brought a strong team one day, and they were all out in the Union after as well, like Collymore and
of course they were.
Paul Merson, Mark Draper. There were some good players, amongst them. It was really good to literally stand on the side of the pitch and see some top Premier League players or had been top players at the time. Yeah. And Merson was great. He was interacting with the students and everything else. And there's one guy on my course that was just doing a management degree, but in the morning, did his lectures in the morning. In the afternoon, he was lining up against Paul Merson. So it's just really, really good times. And if I could relive that era again, I really would.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely, no, definitely, man, definitely. Anyway, Phil, it's been great reminiscing about Loughborough and as well as West Ham.
Exactly. Yeah, we get a bit of West Ham in as well.
Yeah, we do a little bit of West Ham, but doing a little Loughborough reunion as well. So thank you, mate, and obviously thank you so much for watching or listening on, because we're on all the podcasty stuff as well now. So whether you're watching it on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcast or Alexa or whatever, make sure you give it a follow, make sure you give it a like, give it a share. And until next time, from me and Phil, take care, everyone. Stay safe. It's very, very important at the moment. Come on, you irons, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Take care, everyone. See ya.